It is often said that when one woman helps another, amazing things can happen. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ladies Talking Business. I'm your host, Moremi Akano, and with me is my co-host,
Anetta Felix. Our guest on the show today is an entrepreneur and a lawyer with 30 years experience in corporate and commercial law, as well as in business development and governance of multinational corporations.
She is passionate about creating networking opportunities for leading women in business. This led to her establishing GAIA Women Club. She is also the founding parent of Lagos Preparatory School, Ikoyi, one of Africa's leading British curriculum preparatory schools in Lagos. Interestingly, she is a lover of arts, culture, food and wine, Pilates, books, and many more. Let's meet our guest, Olatowun Candide Johnson. I believe I pronounced it properly.
Yes, you did.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. So, who is Olatowun Candide Johnson? Give us a bit of background about you.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. So, Olatowun Candide Johnson is Nigerian. I was born and bred in Lagos, and but I was educated for the most part in the UK. And then I came back to go to law school, did that for a year. And then I started, of course did my NYSC. And then I started to work in law firms. I worked in a couple of law firms. I actually started with criminal law, believe it or not.
Really?
Armed robbery tribunals.
Wow.
Yeah. But then, and then I moved into commercial law because criminal law was
Sorry,
not...
I need to ask about that criminal law. Was it out of passion or you were trying to solve crimes? Or
No, actually, the firm that I worked for, we did a lot of pro bono work.
Okay.
And that was it. And my boss at the time thought that it was a great idea for us to, to cut our teeth on these armed robbery tribunals. But it was always very difficult because you would get them off on a no-case submission and they would be rearrested. So on something else. So yeah, it wasn't great.
Okay.
So anyway, I moved into commercial law, but I did realize that I just was not, litigation was not my thing, because of the long hours you would spend in court, and really, yeah, it wasn't my thing.
It just wasn't your thing.
It just wasn't my thing. And so I moved into, I decided I wanted to go into in-house.
Okay.
And so I went in-house. I first worked in Al Rain, which is actually now the Bolloré Group. So it was Al Rain and Transcap, and I don't know, it was a group of companies. And I worked there as the general manager in charge of administration, which basically included law and the legal department, insurance, and HR.
Okay.
And then I was actually headhunted to work at Total Upstream.
Okay.
So Total Upstream had just come in, and it was an what they call it, an exploration company.
Okay.
Because they had just the one block. That was OPL 246. And so I worked in Total for 18 years.
Wow.
I didn't think I would last that long, to be honest. But I did, because Total is it's a large world, it's very big. And so you move generally from place to place. But I actually ended up doing a lot of law and became, from legal manager, I became general counsel. And then I went to Paris to work there for 3 years, doing business development, which I particularly enjoyed, actually. It was, when you're buying and selling blocks, it's very exciting. You're giving a lot of autonomy, and so you basically fix the pace, and, but, they obviously you're given certain countries to follow. So I followed a few countries, in fact, a lot, but most of the deals didn't come to pass. But, and then I came back to Nigeria, came back to law, but then it was expanded, so I was then overseeing insurance, audit.
Still in Total?
Yes. Yeah. Insurance, audit, law, of course, and then anti-corruption compliance. And then I did that for another while. This was between 2011 and 2014. I decided to go back to school in my old age. Because I guess then I was already thinking about next steps unconsciously, but I knew I wasn't going to leave at retirement age because I wanted to do something for myself. And so I decided that I would go and do an executive MBA. And I selected it because of the age range, sort of like the average age for the TRIME was 40 and above. It was held in 4 different continents. It had 6 modules. It was a good fit.
Okay.
And so I did that between 2014 and 2016. It was a crazy time.
Really? Why? Because
oh my God.
I mean,
because
workload?
Absolutely, because I had my workload, which was not ceasing, and then I had my school work, right? And so at the time that I started in 2014, I was what we call geographically single because I was working and living in Abuja. My husband is in Lagos. And so I would kind of leave work at 9 o'clock and then start the shift, to start my studies. And then I would work over the weekend. It was very tough. It was a very difficult time, but it was very, very fulfilling. It was a huge learning point for me, especially being a lawyer all this time. I have to say that the 3 years that I spent in Paris were useful because obviously I was then introduced into the business world. Starting with economics and learning about decision trees and then learning all the lingo around finance and the MPVs and the IRRs and all the different things. And so that really did, I think maybe that sort of sparked my interest.
In business?
Yeah, but in real business, not sort of buying and selling, right? And so that was why I thought that the MBA would be useful, and it really was. And then when I was done with it, which was really 2016, I decided that it was time to leave and to go and do something for myself. And it was a bit of a shock because people were like, why would you leave this good job, stable job, and go into the world of entrepreneurship, which is extremely unstable, right? Because it's up and down. But I wanted to, I was ready to do it. I was ready for being, for having less money, obviously, but just to pursue this thing that I wanted to do.
So it seems like you've had a really, really busy time. Like I couldn't find a break in all what you were saying from that time.
There actually was no break because, yeah, I don't know whether my work ethic was great because I never stopped working. Even on holiday, I was like,
So tell us about GAIA Africa. Why did you decide to leave all those many years of work in such,
years
and years of work, and to go on to found a company that now serves about 5% of female founders in Africa? What motivated you to take that risk?
Well, so I wanted to do something for myself, right? To run something, not necessarily for myself because I'm, happy to have a partner, but I left because it was time to leave, because I was basically at the top of my profession, with the job that I was doing, and I really didn't see that much more from there. So I thought, it was time, and I wanted to leave at a time when I still had energy, because working for yourself, you need to do even more than I was doing. But so why women, right? And the idea really came when I first started. When I first sort of left, I started to look at another project, and it was still in the members only space, but it was an arts club, and the idea for that club was to have this member space, but to find emerging artists, anything from music to fashion to whatever, anything in the art space, and to showcase their work in the club. But that didn't work out for many reasons. I was trying to look for funding, and I didn't come across that many women in that space. And, I just thought that it's time for women to get together and to do things together. And so I thought that it would be good to, men have been doing this for centuries. It's not new.
Yes.
Men do this, it's intuitive for them. you know, it's just not a big
almost
deal,
easy
right?
for
It's
them.
very easy. You know, women, we're very different because we are the primary carers, we're the nurturers, etc. So we wouldn't have necessarily had that time to sort of stop off at a club and,
Meet.
chat with our,
Yeah.
girlfriends, on the way home, or, maybe not go home until midnight. No,
Yeah.
you just don't have that liberty. And so, but men do it. And so because they, get together regularly, they're able to talk about, the deals that are going on, invite themselves, push each other, support each other, synergize, collaborate, whatever, I'll bring you in on this deal, right? But that wasn't happening for women. In fact, what I found, and maybe I'm wrong, but I found that women were not necessarily talking about business.
Even though they were in business.
Even though they were in business.
Well,
or you don't necessarily, but when we get together, we talk about everything else, the children,
The family.
whatever, exactly. But not really, business. I also found that even when you know people, you don't necessarily know what they do day to day. Yeah, generally that they're in business or, she's a lawyer or whatever, architect, but, what is her day to day? And so that sort of, I then started to think that, okay, so what's the best way to do this? And I came up with, I knew it was going to be a members-only club, but we have to start somewhere, right? So we started with what we call the Business Dining Club. And so we ran that. Basically what that was we got together every month on a Thursday evening. And, I always used to say, it's all very well, you have a family, everything. We're not here to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is what business is doing. And when you're sitting next to somebody, so we did it in smaller groups. I wanted that because it's important for women to build trust. We don't very often trust each other. We sometimes judge each other.
Antagonize each other.
Well, we can be a bit hard on each other, right? But the idea for this is that, look, it's a very relaxed setting, okay? But take advantage of who's sitting next to you so that you can ask her what it is that she's doing. You never know what synergies you're going to unearth. And, we started to do that. We did that for a full year without any membership, but people would generally pay for their dinner.
Who were the first set of people you got? Were they close friends? How did you pick them?
Yes, they were. And I'm glad that you said that, because I can tell you something. Because of the nature of my job, and I think, it applies to most people, we didn't really have that much time to socialize. So people found that they were socializing with each other, right?
At work.
And so when I came out of Total, I found that my network had shrunk rather a lot. So I started to sort of like do the rounds, make sure I saw people, called people, met people. I took every meeting, anybody who wanted to introduce me, because I was actually talking a lot about what I was trying to do. And, even though people say, don't say what you're doing, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to say what I'm doing, because you never know how, who's going to help. And so I did that a lot. And people introduced me to so many different people. And whether beneficial or not beneficial, for me, you never know. It may not be today or tomorrow, maybe, 5 years down the line. So the first people were good friends, actually. So I just kind of used the people that I knew, and I invited them, and I told them what I was trying to do. And I had that first one in, I think, April of 2018.
Yeah. So that's after about a year?
After a year, yeah. Because don't forget there was that other thing that didn't work out. So the idea was also to have a guest speaker who would basically come and talk about her own entrepreneurial walk, And my first guest speaker was Moabudu, who's somebody that I've known for many, many years. And after that, the feedback was just great, because everybody really, they just enjoyed it. They spoke to people, they took numbers, they met lots of new people. And when I spoke with Mo afterwards, she said, you know what, you need to, get this thing going. You need to open up an Instagram page, you need to do this, you need to do that.
Let people know what it's about.
I don't know, am I really ready for this, But I did, and then it just started to move that way. And then I felt that I needed help, and I had to get people, on board to help. And so basically we did that for 1 year. And at the anniversary, we decided that we would close it slightly further, right? And we would then we had something we call the network membership. And at that time, I was then looking at the target, okay? And I realized that it was better for us to have, sort of more senior women, C-suite executives, business founders, senior professionals, who are decision makers, who could actually decide, you know what, I want to do something with you, right? You're an entrepreneur, I'm working in some company, but I'm on the board or I'm, senior management, and I can actually make it happen.
You're looking for the boss ladies.
Absolutely. The people who could say, yes, we're going to do this deal, because this is the bottom line. The purpose for this company, the purpose for this club is to make sure that we connect women. So it's basically to ensure that we are connecting women for business in order to expand their bottom lines and also in order to expand their impact, because the more you can do, the more impactful that you are, right? So that's really the purpose.
So you've actually talked on a few challenges, but we will talk about more of the challenges you faced while running that right after the break.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Ladies Talking Business on PlusTvAfrica, and our guest is Olatowun Candide Johnson. She's a lawyer and an entrepreneur and the founder of GAIA Africa and GAIA Women Club, a female-only club for leading women in business.
Just before we went on break, you said some things about your challenges. Can you give us about 1 or 2 more challenges that you faced when you started now GAIA Africa?
Okay, not necessarily COVID, right?
Oh, no, not necessarily COVID, like when you started the business.
Okay, well, the biggest challenge is always money, okay? It's money, funding, because I really didn't want to do anything that was small, and the distinguishing factor of GAIA Africa is the fact that we have a clubhouse, right? And the clubhouse, has a restaurant, 2 bars, meeting rooms, members' lounge, etc. And so basically the funding is required to remodel a space and to get it going. Yes, so it's the same story for most women, but in my case, I think it's particularly difficult. First of all, because the business is not a tech business, right? Even though we have a tech angle, but it's not a tech business, and so it will basically grow in a very different way. Yeah. Also, the fact is that, I've been, 30 years in corporate world. I wasn't exactly doing business, so there's no sort of everyone looking for my, past record. They're not going to find one. What they will find is my integrity and my doggedness, right? But, so yes, it has really been funding. Also, and when you have funding challenges, you also have challenges with hiring people and stuff, because obviously, you're basically bootstrapping, right? And so it makes things a little more difficult. But whatever, we can't complain. We're in business, right? Nobody sent me there, so
nobody sent me there like that.
I've got to do it, and that's just the way it has to be.
And as an entrepreneur, what structures should a business have in place for it to succeed, especially in a climate like Nigeria, where most entrepreneurs would complain about the difficulty of doing business here?
Well, when you talk about structures for a business, there are 2 main structures, right? There's you have to understand what your legal structure is, because that's going to determine how your business works, right? And then you have to have your organizational structure, right? How you're going to be organized, communication with the different departments, and then you have to have governance in place. You have to have, processes in place and procedures. You have to make sure you're not taking money out of the till, right? Your money is your money and the business is business money. And I think that's very, very important. It's good to have either an advisory board when you're starting or a board of directors, because they will guide you and, they will sort of keep you honest. At least they should do, right? So those for me are the two main
top things
important,
that
and you
business
just
should
have to you have to decide on whether you want to be a business name or whether you want to go for a limited liability or whatever it is. You know, when you're looking for funding, you can't really be a business name. You've got to be a limited liability company.
Yes, yes. So as someone who's passionate about women, so from experience so far, would you say that there are a lot of women occupying top positions in businesses or companies? If not, why?
You know, okay, I made a face, but the truth is that we are better than some jurisdictions and we're worse than some jurisdictions. The Professional Women's Roundtable had a board scorecard recently which showed that we are maybe 22% women on public boards, right?
In Nigeria.
In Nigeria. However, I think the problem lies with what they call the broken rung, and I don't know if you've heard of that. What the broken rung is that, you know, when women first of all go into the workplace, right? There are loads of women, right? When they're first starting, and then that first promotion to manager is where the difficulty is. You will find that if 100 men are promoted to manager, maybe if you're lucky, 40, 50 women will be promoted. Now that has to change. And, you know, I think the companies need to look very, very closely at their diversity and inclusion rules, procedures, policies. Because yes, we talk about diversity and inclusion, but diversity is that I am a woman and that I might get pregnant, right? And just because I get pregnant doesn't necessarily mean that I can't work. It's not an illness, right?
They need to know that.
And, you know, so don't treat women like, you know, oh, I don't know if I'm going to hire you because, you know, tomorrow you're going to get married and then you're going to go have a baby.
Pregnant. Like pregnancy is a plague.
I mean, like, hello, you know. So these are the things, and, you know, unless we get over that, and really there's a lot of, you know, stuff like unconscious biases in there. I don't know if I'll hire her because, you know, I have a small company and, you know, then when they start to leave. And also if a woman does take time off, right, what's wrong with her coming back? They need to have opportunities for women to be able to come back into the workforce.
Thank you for hitting that nail.
And not using it as an opportunity to let them go.
They need to
Absolutely
learn.
not.
But don't you think we women also have the burden to also promote this where we head? So if I head a company, I should put policies in place that will favor other women.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Women have to be at that decision-making table in order to be able to make, you know, change the decisions or, you know, make decisions, etc. Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, if we could, you know, make it into law, you know, even though people say, yeah, well, you know, if you make it into law, you get all kinds of women. No, you just, you know, make sure that the process and procedure is open and fair, right? And because there are many, many, many qualified women that could be on boards.
Yes, I agree.
In the business world, there's a lot of competition, you know, and that's competition for profits, for the large customer base and all of that. But what's your thoughts on business collaboration?
Ooh, essential. And especially in this period, but generally, yes. You know, there's a saying that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's the absolute truth. You find that, you know, the more you can collaborate, the bigger you can do, the better you can do, right? And then, you know, it's more heads than one, right? So absolutely, collaboration is key, and especially in this COVID period, you know, it's a marathon, not a race. So we have to look for people who I'm always on the lookout for people who we can collaborate with, people who we can, you know, have strategic partnerships with, because it's essential for business. You can't do it alone.
In fact, it's a necessity this period. I agree with you that it's a necessity. But on a lighter note, just before we go, I read in your bio that you have level 2 certification from the Wines and Spirits Education Trust. Can you tell me something or tell us something about wines that a lot of people don't know about? Just something.
Well, I don't know about what they don't know about.
No, but something that you know is in-house. Like.
Well, you know, so I'm actually quite passionate about wine. I really enjoy my wine and I like champagne as well. Right, and I'm also actually I have they call me Dame de Chevalier de, I've forgotten what it is, but anyway.
Was that in Paris?
Yeah, it was actually in a place called Reims, and that is really the country of champagne, right, in France, and it's incredible how many different champagnes there are, you know. And, you know, I have to tell you that when we went to this investiture, because they literally, you know, it's almost like, you know, they give you this whole thing that you put around your neck, and, you know, you have to say a pledge, etc., you know, to continue to encourage, you know, the drinking of champagne. But
and
the
wine tasting culture.
Absolutely. But the thing is that, you know, with wine, it's so interesting, you know, the different wines, the different tastes, the different, you know, the way you taste wine, you know, what is on the nose, what is on the palate. You know, what is on the nose may not necessarily translate to the palate. So, you know, you take a big whiff and you smell, I don't know, whatever it is, and then, you know, taste it, and it's a different taste completely. So I think that discovering wines, that's the excitement.
Exciting. I would love to discover wines. I mean, I love wines myself. So I think I would go on that journey sometime soon. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today. This is how far we can go on this episode of Ladies Talking Business. We would like to say a very big thank you to our guest today for making it down, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much indeed for having me.
You're welcome. So don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Ladies Talking Business. From my co-host and I.
Thank you for watching, and see you next week.